Hi, welcome to a conversation with Rickford Burke. This is Rickford Burke in New York. Good night, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're watching from. I hope you're having a good day and or a peaceful rest. Share the link. Go ahead and share the link. Keep sharing the link to all of your relatives and friends, everybody in your contact. Share it on all of your platforms, your Facebook, your Instagram, your YouTube, wherever you have platforms. Share the link. Very important topic tonight. I'm expecting to talk with Mr. Paul Slow. I haven't seen him on yet in the studio, in our virtual studio. But keep sharing the link. I hope that everybody has had a good weekend. I've been away from this program for 2 weeks, so pardon me. I had engagements on those Sundays that didn't permit me to have a show. But I'm back. I'm back. Back, and I'm back. All right, so share the link and I'll be right back. 60 seconds. All right. Keep sharing the link. Good evening again, everybody. Keep sharing the link. We need to get as wide an audience as possible, so keep sharing the link. Every one of you who is watching, share this link to 20 people. Get into all your Guyanese groups. Get into your Facebook Messenger group, Facebook groups. Wherever you have a platform, share the link. Call up all your relatives and friends. Text me. Let me know where you're watching from, so that I could know the reach of conversation. The conversation. Now, I wanted to start the first topic, and hopefully I don't see our guest on as yet, but hopefully he'll join us. I know it's a little late in the night, it's now 11 o'clock because of the time change, but this is important information. I know you guys stay up late looking at Netflix, so knowledge sharing is just as important as your nightly movies. So keep sharing the link. So the first topic I wanted to look at tonight is Mr. Robsen Pyrotechnic Benn. Everybody should give him that name. Pyrotechnic Benn. Robsen Pyrotechnic Benn. Write it down. Robsen Pyrotechnic Benn. And by the way, those of you who are watching, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, Rickford Burke channel. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're on my public figure page, like, follow that page. I have no more space for friends on my profile. So my public figure page is where you'll be able to befriend me. So like the page, follow me. Everybody take some time right now, like the page, follow me on YouTube. Go to YouTube, Rickford Burke on YouTube, and subscribe to that channel so that we can keep getting the information out. So last Saturday, there was a fire at the at the police headquarters. building that is used that houses the so-called Office of Professional Responsibility for the Guyana Police Force. So those of you who live in the developed world, that's the Guyana version of Internal Affairs. Office of Professional Responsibility. I call it the Office of Docking Responsibility. The Office of Docking Responsibility. Because they have not been investigating anything that comes to the conduct of police officers. They have not. So it's the Office of Docking Responsibility. And you guys will understand why I'm saying Office of Docking Responsibility. Just keep sharing the link. Keep sharing the link. Let's get the audience wider. Office of Docking Responsibility. So this fire completely gutted the part of the building, or completely destroyed the part of the building that housed the Police Office of Professional Responsibility / Office of Docking Responsibility. And then adjoining that building is the DPP's office. The DPP's office. Shalimar Ali Haq is the DPP. Everybody should know her. You know, she's very distinctive in her dress. She wears traditional Muslim wear, religious lady. So her office was partly burned. They issued a statement saying that, for the most part, they were able to save everything in that office. What is housed in the DPP's office? Files regarding criminal cases. DPP is the Chief State Prosecutor of Guyana, Director of Public Prosecutions. We have the British system of government, so it's the DPP. In the United States and other countries, we call it the District Attorney or the State's Attorney. State's Attorney or District Attorney here in North America. In the Caribbean, Guyana, Commonwealth is called the Director of Public Prosecutions. Again, that's the Chief Prosecutor. So we had fire, I'm thinking, targeting the Breakdown Police Station. Where's SpongeBob? Remember SpongeBob? He lit a sponge and tied it on a wire and used a lighter to let that piece of wire with the lit sponge through some ventilation and burn down the whole Breakdown. Magic. At that time, the PPP adopted a Trump strategy. The PPP adopted the Trump strategy with regard to Black Lives Matter. Trump said they're a racist set of people and they burn down everything. Right? When they have destructive elements within their own conservative society, infiltrating these Black Lives Matter. I'm not saying some of the elements in the Black Lives Matter protests weren't there to be malicious, but they also had conservatives pretending to be Black Lives Matter activists, right? And creating hate. So Trump called them arsonists. And I see Mr. Slow is here, so we're gonna I'm gonna bring him in when I'm done with the introduction. So after that Breakdown fire, the PPP said, "Oh, it is those guys in New York who got the support of Black Lives Matter to criticize their racism. They're the ones that burned down Breakdown Police Station." Now, Breakdown Police Station is the headquarters for Georgetown. So it is the most secure building in Georgetown, as far as I'm concerned, as far as it should be, if we're serious about national security. So a man was able to walk in Brickdam police station with a lighter, a sponge, and a wire and burn down the whole police station. Fast forward to last Saturday, where you had the police headquarters, a building in the campus, on the campus of the police headquarters, or the compound of the police headquarters, burned down. And the building, part of it, has Office of Professional Responsibility. Pause there. The Office of Professional Responsibility, as I said, is the Internal Affairs Department. The Internal Affairs, they investigate, they're supposed to investigate unprofessional or criminal or unethical conduct of police officers. So that building burned down, that entire place burned down. And the part that housed the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecution's Office, was saved. It seems to me, now, again, SpongeBob or a man with somebody flew from New York, from Black Lives Matter, according to the PPP, walk into police headquarters with incendiary materials and burn down Office of Professional Responsibility. This is what the PPP government wants us to believe. And then you had Mr. Robsen, Pyrotechnic Benn. He said, people in New York seem to have a pyrotechnic mindset that's causing the fires in Georgetown. The Minister of National Security, the fire is ongoing. He is at an active fire scene. There is no investigation going on. There is no gathering of evidence. There is no finding of facts. But the Minister of National Security is saying the fire was caused by people in New York. Somebody from New York with a pyrotechnic mind. You know what is pyrotechnic? Pyrotechnic is fireworks, right? Those squibs and the fireworks that you see and the 4th of July displays, pyrotechnics. Somebody, Robsen Benn said, with a flair for pyrotechnics, caught a flight from New York, passed through security at JFK with the pyrotechnics, flew on a plane with pyrotechnics. Remember how dangerous pyrotechnics are? They burned, they exploded before the Guyana Independence celebration 2 years ago, killing several officers of the Guyana Defense Force. The person put that on a plane and flew all the way to Georgetown, past the Mary Airport, past customs, past immigration, drive all the way to Georgetown, past all the security at police headquarters, and went and burned down the building. That's the Minister of National Security. Now, the guy is a joker. He's a non-serious person. He cannot be taken seriously. I'm sure that when he goes to meetings in the Caribbean, his colleague national security ministers are embarrassed that we have such a clown, a buffoon in their midst, posing as Guyana's national security minister. So I want to talk about that. And then we had this rape situation on the East Coast where an 18-year-old girl made a police report. Keep sharing the link. Everybody here share the link. Made a police report that she was allegedly raped by a taxi driver. Taxi driver got some connections in the police force. And so the police interrogated the young lady in the presence of the alleged rapist. She's 18, he's allegedly an adult in his early 40s or something, 43. That's a crime as far as I'm concerned. Second, is very irresponsible and reckless. So it's offending and proven, or a confrontation engineered by the Guyana police force. The young lady was probably so embarrassed, she felt so violated, she killed herself. Not a word from the Guyana police force. Not a word from the guy in the police force. So former Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Paul Slow, who is the immediate past chairman of the Police Service Commission, has spoken out about this issue. So tonight I want to ask him, based on his professional experience, his national security experience, and as a former police officer, what are his views about Mr. Pyrotechnics and this police misconduct with regard to the rape allegations? Welcome, former Assistant Commissioner, Mr. Paul Slow.
Thank you, Rickford. Good night, welcome, and good night to your viewers. And,
thank you.
I was listening to the introduction. I couldn't help smiling having listened to what you're saying.
I couldn't help it either, Mr. Pyrotechnic Benn. Let's start with the pyrotechnics. Let's start with pyrotechnics. Now, you have been a law enforcement officer for what? Over 40 years, correct?
Well, I spent 37 years in the Ghana police force, and
I'm sorry, I'm trying to date you older than you are. Sorry about that. Over 30 years, you're a police officer. Now, what does it say? How can, let me rephrase that. Let me don't need to. A Minister of National Security is at an active crime scene, but he is repeating political talking points that somebody in New York with a pyrotechnic mindset caused a fire in Georgetown. As a former investigator and law enforcement officer, do you think that's appropriate for a Minister of National Security to be speculating about the cause of a fire when he has no facts?
Well, I listened to a bit of it, and let me say this: my BS meter is very sensitive, and when certain things are said these days, the meter goes off, and that causes me to tune out immediately to those things. I started to listen to the minister and the comments that he made, which I think were most unfortunate. Because here it is, you have a fire. One would expect that the fire service people are going to investigate, and they are going to pronounce on the cause of the fire. But even before the investigation has commenced, the minister seems to know how or who caused this fire. And to make those comments, I would think are very unfortunate.
Maybe we should investigate him. He seemed to know the origin of the fire.
Well, he seems to have known a lot about who may have been responsible for the fire, and I think the fire service investigators may want to start right there with their investigation.
From a law enforcement perspective, when you look at the pattern of how these fires are moving, Breakdown Police Station, Police Headquarters, DPP, is it unfair to conclude that somebody's trying to destroy some sort of police evidence?
Well, if you look at some recent fires, let me start with a fire at the living quarters in Vigilance Police Station. I think that it was said that that was arson. The Breakdown Police fire also said that someone started that fire. I am not sure what is the cause of the fire, the recent fire on Saturday. But I think it's worrying. After the Breakdown fire, I did make a comment on social media. I wrote an article and I indicated that steps should be taken to make sure that there are proper firefighting arrangements in the force and elsewhere, because we know that many of those buildings are old wooden buildings, and therefore I think that proper arrangements should be made to respond to any emergency, including fires. I don't know what has happened. I think sometime thereafter there was a big show that there was a firefighting drill in police headquarters. Well, the thing was laughable because I corresponded. Well, I spoke to some people, and one of the first questions that sprung to mind is that how can you be doing a firefighting simulation in police headquarters and the people are assembled in the very police headquarters? I mean, the thing was a joke.
Well, it's the Ghana Police Force. I mean, how do you feel as someone who was in leadership? You were former deputy police commissioner, sorry, assistant.
Assistant,
Police,
yes. I never got.
um,
I was an assistant commissioner for 11 plus years. I was never promoted to deputy.
oh wow! But did you one time perform the duties of deputy?
Well, let me put it this way. From 2008 until I retired in 2010, I occupied the office of Deputy Commissioner Operations. I see people are occupying the same office now and are holding themselves out to be Deputy Commissioner. But by you saying that you're a Deputy Commissioner, and everyone calls you Deputy Commissioner, that does not make you a Deputy Commissioner. The requirements are there, the constitutional requirements are there for you to become a Deputy Commissioner. It's a process similar to making someone or appointing someone as a Commissioner of Police. It requires the consultation by the President with the opposition leader. It requires the involvement of the Police Service Commission before that appointment is made. So I did perform the functions of Deputy Commissioner Operations for 3 years, and before I left the force.
What are the implications for national security that these fires are happening in some of the most secure buildings, supposedly secure buildings in Georgetown? Law enforcement, police headquarters, police command headquarters. What are the implications for national security?
Well, of course, the implications are serious, because one would tend to believe that if those buildings that are supposed to be secured are put on fire, or fires are in those buildings which are supposed to be secure, then one would tend to believe that perhaps anywhere else you can have. And when you look at, again, Brigham, the court superintendent's office, the Brigham property room that held all of those exhibits, then you look at the building housing the DPP's chambers. Thankfully, that building, I think, and they said that most of the files, or if not all of the files there, the crime files, were saved. I mean, it's worrying, because you're talking not only national security, you're talking about law and order, you're talking about the rule of law, because I'm sure, I don't think up to now they have been able to come up with the files that have been destroyed in the Brigham fire, the exhibits that were destroyed in the Brigham fire, and how that will affect cases that are before the court. So I said, thankfully, the DPP's office was saved, and one would think that most of those files there have been saved, and therefore those matters will be able to proceed in court.
You've been providing really good analysis of law enforcement issues, and also speaking out about unethical and probably even unprofessional or unlawful conduct in the Ghana Police Force. I noticed someone from the government attacking you, saying that you're PNC. I remember, and this goes to your professionalism, I remember in 1997 when I went back for the election campaign, we were upset with you too, because you were doing your job as a police commander in Georgetown, I think, when they had the protests, and you were trying to ensure that the protests are lawful. How do you respond to that individual that says you're doing this because you're PNC?
Well, first of all, let me say that I've never been a member of any political party. I am not a member of any political party. And it is typical of some of these supporters. They fail to listen to the message, and then they want to attack the messenger. But as you rightly pointed out, even before 1997, I want to, perhaps some of them are too young to remember, perhaps they're too lazy to read the history of what went on in Georgetown, who is Paul Slow, and I refer to the elections in 1992, again in 1997. And as you rightly pointed out, at that stage, when there were people on the road dealing kind of unlawful act, I had a responsibility then, in the first instance, as the officer in charge of the Tactical Services Unit. That is 1992. And in 1997, I was the second in command at Brigham with responsibility for law and order in around Georgetown. And I went there with the other policemen, and we did what the law required us to do, and that is to deal with unlawful assemblies and to deal with people who are rioting. And at that stage, I mean, if you look back, I challenge those to look back, and I encourage them to look back. Paul Slow, in the eyes of the PPP, was the best thing since sliced bread.
Exactly.
I was the best thing since sliced bread, and they felt that I was the most professional police officer in the Guyana police force, and that was publicly stated. But then things turned in 2003 rather, when I took similar professional action and refused to carry out an unlawful order from the then Minister of Home Affairs and the President, Mr. Jagdeo, and then I became the worst person, this political person they're trying to make me into. But I have always been professional. I've always done what I think the law allows me and what the situation requires to be done, and I will continue to do that.
Good, good. Now, you spoke about the files that we haven't heard anything about that were destroyed from the Brickdam fire. I guess now they're doing an assessment of what files, in terms of the police files that were destroyed in this fire, Office of Professional Responsibility. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that the Boston files were destroyed or whatever other professional investigations that the PR was conducting. What does it say that this government or successive governments have been focusing on police infrastructure, things like vehicles and communication equipment and all of that, but not placing all their files in an electronic form so that you could access these files from anywhere? There's no proper electronic system in the Guyana Police Force. What do you say to the government or to the force leadership, the leadership of the force rather, about digitizing the Guyana Police Force and using technology to make sure that the records are maintained?
Well, I would think and I would hope and expect that, having regards to what transpired in Brickdam and this most recent fire, that people will understand that you need to move into the 21st century when it comes to the crime files and these things, to have all of these paper files so that when there is a fire or someone can just slip them out. As no many times people complain, you go to court and the crime file cannot be found or statement cannot be found, things are missing. It is time that these things are digitized so that they can be more secured. Because one shudders to think that all of those serious matters are there. Then one fire and all of those things are obliterated. And they have to get serious and make sure that those things are digitized and be more secured.
To your knowledge, is there a unified computerized system in the Ghana Police Force where you can?
Well, I'm not sure there is. I know they're computers, and I think some of the records have been digitized over the years, but I'm not sure the extent to which that program has gone.
Well, I'm talking about the system, an operating system, where if you want to file a report, you just pull up that format in a computer system, and you fill in the information. So that report then goes directly to the DPP's office or the whatever office without a man running over with a file. You scan all these documents. I guess they don't have that.
No, I don't think they have that. I don't think. I know for sure. Years ago, when I was dealing with the reform in the police force, that was part of the plan. I know Brain Street, I think it was at the time, Lance Hines. We were working towards digitizing all of those things. So that when you went to the station to make a report, someone will enter the report straight into a computer, and the record is there with all the follow-up and all. I don't know where that program went. I don't know if it's still, I'm almost certain it has not been implemented. Perhaps it is shelved, I don't know. But I think that's the way to go, and I would hope that now that we have had these disastrous fires, that people will see the need to move that, to resuscitate or to get a program similar to that going as soon as possible.
How do you feel about the country being an oil and gas producing country, supposedly getting all this money now from oil and gas, and we're trying to have a hodgepodge, ad hoc manner or system or approach rather to development, rather than a comprehensive approach, and not moving the national security infrastructure along with the other aspects of development? I don't think we're doing much development. To me, we run around in a circle. But in this day and age, when there's development, our law enforcement system, the entire national security infrastructure, be it prisons, be it immigration, be it police operations, fire, everything is back in the 60s. How do you feel about that? Maybe the government needs to hire you as a consultant so that you could aid in the modernization of the national security infrastructure.
No, sir. If they were to do that, the last time I was hired, I was asked to do a job along with some other colleagues. That landed me before the court with a conspiracy to commit fraud charge. So if they were to do that, maybe I'll get the next charge. So no, thank you. I think I'm happy where I am. I'm going to continue to be there. Now, let me say this. In terms of the modernization of the force, I think the only area that we can be somewhat proud of would be the immigration. I think the work was done, digitizing with the digital passports and and that type of thing. And I think most people now, when they go to acquire a new passport, they will tell you how modern that system is. But I think the other areas have been left behind. So, again, there needs to be a comprehensive program. So if you're going to talk about modernization, you have to look at all the areas. I recall during the tenure of the Minister of Citizenship, retired Commissioner Felix, and they were responsible for passport and that type of thing, and they opened branches in Letem, and the thing was decentralized. I read recently where people are now made to, or can now go to certain outlying areas to have those transactions, but those things were all there. So the person needed to travel from, need not to have to travel from quarantine to come to Georgia to passport, or from Essequibo and all of those places. So it needs to be part of a comprehensive plan to deal with those issues. And the same thing goes for national security, because national security is not only people running around the place trying to catch thieves. It is more far-reaching and a comprehensive plan. And we should be able to see, now it's not going to be implemented overnight, but you ought to be able to see how this thing is working. And let me tell you this, national security plans, really, when they are put together, they're no secret. All the components of those plans are not secret, because they are things that people in the ministries, there are things that a lot of people, civilians, the citizenship at large, need to know and need to be involved in. So I don't think they have a national security plan. I don't think there is a national security plan. I know there's a national security advisor. I don't know what he's advising on. I don't know what is going on, but he's there. And there's no indication that there's a plan to deal comprehensively with national security issues.
And that's very obvious. I mean, the government has not laid out a plan for anything. The only plan we're seeing is, as I said, a hodgepodge hustle. I think there's something going on in the government where somebody thinks that something has to happen very quickly before another thing happens, like a disaster is coming or something. So they're scrambling to sign a hotel deal and give away this land and take the land. And it's like, I have never seen a government adopt such an ad hoc, crazy approach to development. I don't even think you could call it development. It's just, they're just going about doing things. So you have the prison. That's a disaster. Prisoners are being held in tents. Prisoners have phones, televisions, gadgets, electronic gadgets, knives, gasoline. So I'm not sure. To me, Guyana can be destabilized very easily because of a lack of a national security plan. They're not upgrading the law enforcement agencies in the country. The military doesn't have proper equipment. They don't even have proper boats to patrol Guyana's waters. When we are in South America, where there's so much drugs, matter of fact, there are allegations that people in the government, in that business. How could we move forward in terms of the public, in terms of persons coming to Guyana to invest, coming to Guyana to live, bringing their families? What's your advice to people in terms of Guyana's safety, Guyana's law enforcement, the fire service, if we have one? What's your advice to somebody looking into Guyana from outside?
Well, I don't think it may be presumptuous of me to attempt to advise persons who want to come to invest and so on, but the evidence is there. I think now and again, even the U.S. State Department will issue advisory to their citizens, and those things are very worrying, because if you're going to talk about development and if you're going to be encouraging persons to come to develop in the country, you need to have an environment which allows them to feel secure and safe. I want to say that the current environment does not encourage, does not engender that type of feeling, and therefore something needs to be done. Because many times recently, I think it was the president who claimed that crime in Guyana is down by 19%. And I want to say this as a former senior police law enforcement officer. Many times it's not the figures, whether it is down or not. Many times it's the perception. People right now feel that they don't feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, you can flash and you can bandy around all the figures that you want, because it's not only people who are victims of crime, but sometimes people are fearful of situations, and that is what you have to address. You have to make sure that when a man goes to the market on Saturday, since you know that Saturday perhaps is the vulnerable day, you have to make sure that systems are in place to make sure that people are safe during that period of time. And that is what those statistics are all about, or should be all about.
A few years ago, a group of us here concerned about law enforcement, sent down a couple of recommendations to the then government, which was the APNU government. And we sat with some law enforcement officers here for suggestions. One of the things that they suggested, which we had sent to President Granger, which I'm not sure was ever implemented. I'm not sure that Granger implemented anything. But anyway, was sectoring. And you know what sectoring is. You're familiar with the New York City Police Department. They identify a certain small geographic area, or they divide the entire country into geographical areas, manageable areas, and they assign police officers to that sector. And those officers' responsibility is only to patrol, protect, and serve people in that sector. Whenever there's a mass event, they go to this sector and they investigate and they control the areas if necessary, and so on. But they're always in it. That's why New York City has a 3-minute response time, because there are always cops in a particular location. Is that possible to be implemented in Guyana? I know we don't have the vehicular resources and all of that, but isn't that something they should attempt so as to make the population feel safer?
Well, let me say this. Back in the day, people always, some people come and hide when you talk about back in the day. Back in the day in Georgetown, let's say, you had beats. The entire Georgetown and its environments was divided into beats. And people were responsible for particular beats. And I know people will tell you that if you were in a beat, let's say in a particular part of Regent Street, and somebody had a breakage, a store was broken into, you were held accountable. You had to say, how come that happened in your beat? So you had a responsibility for that small geographical area called a beat to ensure that things go good. And we have geographical areas. I mean, some of the areas are wide. For example, you have the regional divisions from 1 to 10, and then you also have stations within those divisions. So yes, we do have geographical area. Perhaps the problem is who is responsible and what type of accountability there is when something goes wrong. I had the good fortune of attending the FBI Academy, and I did a course in community policing. And that is what they taught us community policing is about, because when you had a small area, you had a responsibility to know everything that is going on in that area and to be able to interact with the persons in that area to find out what the problems are and together try to come up with solutions. The community policing that we were taught is not the type that you have in Guyana where people run around with guns and say they're patrolling and so on. It was an arrangement where the police in the particular area they got into the problem-solving mode, interacted with people in the community, knew what the problems in the community were, and together they came together to make sure that those problems are addressed. So yes, that can work, but it needs to be looked at. And one of the big issues that you have in the whole arrangement, as I alluded to earlier, is accountability. Having the system there, and if something goes wrong, someone must be held accountable. But in Guyana, no one is held accountable for anything.
I listened to you there, and I'm surprised about the beat system, right? Because there's no accountability. Is it that? Well, for instance, we have in New York here a program by the New York City Department called the NCO, Neighborhood Community Officers, and they do the same thing. They are responsible for interacting in the community, and they have a very small. The NCO territory is very small. Well, of course, NYPD has the resources, but they know everything that's happening in the community. They know the schools, they interact with the principals, they know the students, they know the security officers, they know the sports facilities, who manage them, who run them. So, and they know everything, where the problem areas are, who sell drugs, who's a bad man on the block. They know everything. Do we have that kind of situation in Ghana?
Well, there's no need. Well, there's no reason why the people in the force cannot do that. And in terms of knowing who the people are, many times the police will know who criminal elements are. But the issue is how those forces are dealt with. Many times allegations are made, that reports are made, and rather than police, or when they apprehend the person, they cut a deal. And that is one of the worrying things. So you need to make sure that the thing is properly structured, the thing is properly managed. It has to have buy-in from the people at the top, the government level, and the senior ones in the police force. At the moment, I don't think there's that type of buy-in. There's not that type of structured arrangement. Every time you hear you have a flash thing, or let's have a symposium on to deal with some issue, integrity in policing. And then what happens? Just a talk shop, and nothing happens because no one is held accountable for unprofessional action, and the thing continues unabated.
And I think that's the root of it. And I saw that's where you were going. The police has bad management or no management at all. There's no leadership in the Ghana police force. And it's either they're incompetent or they lack training or both. You have a situation where you don't have a police commissioner. You don't have deputy police commissioners. You have a few people running around calling themselves all sorts of big crime chief, this, that. And the last week, the visiting delegation from the United States National Bar Association issued a stinging indictment on the government after their visit, where they said that all these people acting in all these positions undermine justice and order in the country. And we're seeing the effects of it. How can this situation be addressed?
Well, I missed the last part because I think you froze for a while there, so I didn't hear what the question is.
Oh, no, I'm saying the NBA team issued a statement or did an interview, Judge Moore did an interview where he actually made an indictment of the state, where he pointed out how badly these people acting in these various positions, even up in the judiciary, can undermine law and order and justice in the country. And we're seeing the effects of it. How should this matter be dealt with?
Well, I don't think it's a good thing to have people acting. Right now, you have, for example, in the force, there's two deputy commissioners. You have Nigel Appy, a deputy commissioner, and we say acting, but I would prefer to say that he's carrying out the functions of the commissioner. And the other deputy commissioner substantive is Mr. Paul Williams, who has been sent, I think, to deal with COVID or something like that. And then you have several other persons who one of my colleagues called masqueraders. He said that they are masquerading, and that is exactly what they're doing. They're there in these offices. They're not qualified to be in those offices, and therefore you have an issue. They are not qualified. They are not competent enough to deal with those issues, to deal with the burdensome task of those offices, and therefore you have a problem. The thing cascades down. And you need competent management in the law, not only at the level of the force, but that's to come all the way down to the division, right down to the stations, right down to, if you talk about the beat, you need people who are competent to deal with these issues. And if you don't have competent people, you will continue to have all of these problems popping up the red so frequently.
Isn't the genesis of this issue political interference? Because this government, or whenever the PP is in power, they want to, in my view, dominate everything, and they want to control the Ghana police force. And so what they do is they move political people, or people who they perceive to be their political supporters, into these key strategic offices. And then what you get is incompetence, because they're square pegs in round hole. So isn't the crux of this matter, as we say, political interference in the administration and governance of the police force?
Well, I have no doubt about that. And as I wrote some time ago, unprecedented political interference. And I think that is the genesis of the legal issues that I have right now. Because when you stand up to say, no, this thing cannot happen, then people come after you with all kind of trump-up charges and that type of thing. All because you say to them that these people who you are seeking to have promoted are incompetent. They have matter spending. They're not qualified. They're not eligible to be promoted. And that rubs people the wrong way. And then they come after you. And that is what is happening. So you have people, many persons. I think the most glaring two that three. You have the issue with the man in charge of Soku, Senior Superintendent Karim Bash, with issues. I think, and you would have, the viewers perhaps would have, or the Attorney General criticizing Soku and the Vice President criticizing Soku. But they put him there. They put him there knowing fully well that he's not qualified for the office. You have, they say, a similar issue at the administration of the force with Senior Superintendent Calvin Brutus, who the Chief Justice in a ruling found him to be self-serving. This is on June 28th. The Chief Justice ruled that Senior Superintendent Calvin Brutus is self-serving, and he still is in the position. So he's still there in the position. Nothing has happened. No attempt has been made to remove him. And then, of course, you have Assistant Commissioner Clifton Aiken, who I have said repeatedly, and we repeat it for emphasis, is not qualified for the position. I understand that he is one of them, or he's a person who is touted to be the next commissioner. Well, if that happens, God help us all.
Well, I mean, this is the PPP. The PPP, you see, to me, the PPP want to have these Afro-Guyanese there so they could point and say, no, we're not racist. We have a black man as the police commissioner. But then you have these people who are absolutely, in my view, corrupt, unethical, unprofessional, incompetent, but loyal to the PPP. And that's who they think they must put in these positions. I want to, well, I was going to ask a question, but that's going to sound a little political. I know you're a professional guy, so I want to ask you that. But in terms of, you said Mr. Brutus is still there, even though he has been basically condemned by the Chief Justice. You have Karim Bash still in the position. even though he's incompetent, he's under investigation. Brutus is still under investigation. Do you think integrity matters to the leadership of this government and the Guyana Police Force? Or is it loyalty trumping integrity?
Well, integrity should be critical. But as one of the surrogates did say to me, that the government looking for someone who is loyal. And I remember I did say to him, and I did mention it on one of the programs, that it should not be about loyalty. It should be about professionalism. It should be about competence. And unless you go that route to seek persons who are competent, who can get the support and the respect of the wider community and the members of the force, their peers, their subordinates, then you're not going to be going any place. You're going to keep just where you are with all the issues cropping up so frequently, and that is what you have now. The word integrity is foreign to some of those persons who were there. So I guess they tactically acknowledge that when they had to have a symposium to deal with integrity in policing. But as I said then, at the very symposium dealing with integrity in policing, you have people there who are being called rank that they don't have. They're being referred to as deputy commissioners. They hold themselves out to be deputy commissioners, and you're there sitting to talk about integrity. So there goes the whole concept of integrity right away, because integrity, as I pointed out some time ago, speaks to one thing, it speaks to is honesty. And you can't be telling yourself that you're a deputy commissioner, calling yourself deputy commissioner.
Well, the Minister of National Security calls them deputy.
Yeah, frequently. I remember when they had the breakdown fire, and they had the press conference at the Ministry of Home Affairs. He referred to them. So we're making joke of this whole thing.
As a former chairman of the Police Service Commission, let me raise this Paul Williams issue. To your knowledge, does any law permit a government to remove a deputy police commissioner appointed without cause, to remove him from that position because you don't think that he will support you politically? Is there any law that gives a government the power to do that?
I don't know. I know there are lots of, if you go back into the recent history of the Ghana Police Force, and I can talk, I joined the force in 1974. They have had secondments. People have been moved from the force. Larry Lewis, for example, was moved to some parallel agency. You had, when the National Service began, people were moved to agency. Mr. Norman McLean, who was a senior police officer, was moved to the National Service. So you have had people who have been moved, but not.
But I noticed all those people that you refer to moved to law enforcement agencies. Mr. Williams has not been moved to law enforcement agency. Mr. Williams has been moved to something, whatever you call it, Civil Defense Commission. Well, I don't mean to demean the Civil Defense Commission, but if you have an appointed deputy police commissioner who has been appointed, qualified, trained, and the force is deplete right now of professionalism, and you have a trained, qualified officer sitting at some desk somewhere because you think he's black and he doesn't support you politically, I'm not sure how lawful that is.
Well, I don't know how lawful it is, but just suffice it to say that in 2003, President Jack Dew attempted to do the same thing with me, tried to move me from the force to the Financial Investigation Unit, an agency outside the force, and I went to court and challenged it, and then they had to back down. So I suspect the precedent is there. I mean, it amounts to, in my case, we argued successfully that it amounts to removal from office without cause.
Exactly.
And therefore, Williams has to know what he is doing, because he has been moved. And remember, if you look at how it happened, shortly after the government came into power in 2020, 2nd of August, he suddenly was sent on leave. He was ordered to go on a long leave, I think 200 and something days leave. He was ordered to proceed and leave. I know that the same Fazil Karimbash and Clifton made complaints to the political bosses, claiming that Williams was involved in some improper act. My understanding is that that allegation was thoroughly investigated and he was cleared. Yet still, when he resumed from the long leave that he was sent on, he was then seconded to, I think, the COVID task force, something like that. So it's a clear case where, if you look at the sequence of events, that he was not moved there because it was felt that perhaps he has some skill that is required there. He was moved just to get him out of the force. And many people have the belief, including me, that he was moved to try to make way. Remember, after Oppie, it is Williams. So he was moved to try to make way for these pretenders. That is what it is. That is what I believe it is.
I happen to think, and you don't have to comment on this. I look at the whole sequence of events. You had Bar Jagdev standing up in the vicinity of diplomats, threatening senior police officers and their families. I'm going to do a show on that. And then they came into the force and started to remove people and undermine people and even threaten people's families. I happen to think the Ghana police force should have reacted to Bar Jagdev forcefully. Whether or not, and this has been the problem in Guyana, you have the PPP guys commit crimes. Bar Jagdev committed a crime, a violation of the Cyber Crimes Act, when he incited violence against the president of Guyana. The police force didn't act. Then he committed crimes against police officers when he threatened them as opposition leader, and nothing happened. Bar Jagdev should not have been allowed to leave that scene. In any other country, he should not have been allowed to leave that scene. He should have been arrested and placed before the courts. These guys think that they are bad, and as Anand said, bad John. But I think people like those, the police force, have to take action like what they do in Sudan, surround their house and run them out of government, because they're criminals. They're criminals. But let me move to this rape allegation issue. Very disturbing. You had an 18-year-old girl who reported to the Covent John police station, and that's so sad because that's a place I actually live. My dad was stationed there. I know that compound so well, and the Covent John police had a reputation on the East Coast of being really effective police officers. But so you had the rape allegation made against a taxi driver by this 18-year-old whose mother sent her out and arranged for this car to pick her up and so on. He allegedly raped her. She went to with her parent to make the police report at Covent John, and they interrogated her in the presence of the alleged rapist. Is this true, or is it something that somebody's making up?
That is what the sister claims. She's on Mama Vak. I looked at it. I have to look at it again because when I think it was on Friday she made the complaint, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So later the day, the thing and the tape is there, the recording is there on YouTube. I went to YouTube. I looked at it again, and that is what she's claiming. She's claiming that the report was made at Covent John police station, and our sister, who is a rape victim, was interviewed in the presence of the accused rapist and our mother. So very, very worrying. As I wrote yesterday.
Police officers still on the force?
But I don't know if anything has happened, because I wrote and I said that this complaint, again, I said then, and I'm repeating now for emphasis, I'm not saying that the allegation is true. I am in no position to determine the truth of the allegation. I'm saying, however, that the allegation is serious enough to warrant a proper investigation by competent, credible persons.
Isn't this something the DPP should be looking at? I'm not sure. I mean, the DPP only looks at matters that come to them through the police. Because the DPP
does not investigate. The DPP does not investigate matters. The police will investigate, and then matters are referred to the DPP, who will advise on criminal charges. So the DPP, I don't think, will have anything to do with it at this stage.
I hear people saying that, but somehow I kind of disagree. I have to go back and read the Constitution because I think the DPP can independently commence an investigation, but I'll just go back and review the law. But this is something for the Social Services Department at the Ministry of, they don't call it Human Services anymore. They call it, well, Human Services. It used to be Social Protection, right? It's
Yes.
Ministry of Human Services. Dr. Prasad is that an installed minister. I hope they will take. Now, what about the allegation that they told her that they could investigate the matter? Vigilance will have to investigate the matter and arrest. Is that a policy in the Ghana Police Force? It doesn't seem to make any sense.
Well, the allegation really is that they were doing the investigation at Cove and John, but the rape, the person who's alleged to have committed the rape lives in Buxton, which is Vigilance Police Station District. And
Right.
the allegation is that they were then told, that the victim and her relatives were told that they had to go to Vigilance Police Station so that Vigilance Police Station can effect the arrest. As I said, I find that unbelievable. Police in Guyana, we don't have local and state and agency. Once you're police in Guyana, you're police in the entire 83,000 square miles, and you have powers of arrest. I know, even in cases like that, if let's say at that time you might not have had the resources at the Cove and John, the police will call the
Vigilance, exactly.
vigilance and ask vigilance to effect the arrest for them. Not you telling the victims or the people who are making the report to go to the Vigilance Police Station. And that is something that has crept into the police force over the years, and they have not dealt with it properly, and it will continue because many times a person will go to a particular location to make a report, and they will tell you, oh, that is not this district. You have to go to the next district. And my training is that that is never so. You make a report wherever it is convenient for you to make the report, and the police have what they call it in transit report. They will then send the report to the appropriate station for follow-up action, but not for you to send the reporter to tell the reporter that, look, this is not this station district. You have to go to that station district to that is not the way it should be done. But I don't know who is teaching these people. I don't know who is holding them accountable when these type of reports are made. I know definitely not the Office of Professional Responsibility, because they do investigations and nothing happens after that. And that is something I am going to address very soon. These investigations that are being done by the Office of Professional Responsibility, and I suspect I'm doing the research, even when matters are reported to the Police Complaints Authority, and the Police Complaints Authority and OPR find that people are culpable and they have breached the disciplinary code, nothing happens. Nothing happens.
I'm surprised that this is an 18-year-old young lady, a teen. I'm surprised that we have heard nothing from the ministry. And then we're hearing too also that there's a connection between the investigator and the alleged rapist. That might influence the behavior of the police.
The tape is there, but part of what the sister of the victim, deceased victim, claimed is that she made that allegation to say that the partner of the alleged rapist is the age stylist or the hairdresser of the investigator. And she went on further to say that a senior rank involved in the investigation bears the same surname of the alleged rapist, implying that there might be some family relationship. I don't know it is so, but again, I say these allegations warrant a proper investigation.
Right. Well, CGID has asked an attorney in Guyana to investigate this issue, and we're going to release the names of these police officers. We need transparency. That's something that's lacking in Guyana, transparency. So I want to put the Guyana Police Force on notice. You better start to do some work here, so we can release all the information. One last question before you go. I noticed, and I think you alluded to it, I noticed that a practice has emerged in Guyana where criminal matters are settled out of court. Somebody make a police report, and then they either go to the police station and they're charged, well, the alleged, the perpetrator is charged, placed before the court, or even before they're placed before the court, they make a deal with the police, somebody pays some sort of money or whatever it is, and the case goes away. Even magistrates are allowing this to happen, where somebody, for instance, hits down somebody while driving a motor vehicle, and the person is charged for causing death by dangerous driving, and then they pay the family a couple $1 million, and then the case is dropped. How is the state involved in such corrupt act?
Well, yeah, that is a practice which is to be frowned on, because I know, as a former divisional commander, senior police officer, we had a policy, we have to develop a policy that when these allegations are made and the matters are investigated, and we find that there's evidence to put before the court, any settlement, go to court. We are not dealing, police are not supposed to be dealing with settlement, and the parties decide, well, look, we're going to let them go to court. You see, the issue is that once they go to court, then a party can decide, well, look, I no longer wish to give evidence against the other person. Then the court will deal with it. But once that type of arrangement takes place at the police station, it is open for all type of allegation of corruption. That's why you're hearing some police took money. That is why many times, that is what is alleged, that police take the money and then they settle the matter. Let the matters go to the court, send the matter to the court, and let the court decide. Police are not in the business of deciding guilt or innocence. Police, when you investigate, is to make sure that your case is made out, a prima facie case you believe is made out, and then it goes for legal advice. The DPP will advise you, well, yes, there's a prima facie case, let the matter go before the court, and any settlement at all should be in the courts. Because I said sometimes the magistrate, even though we might be critical, because if the victim decides, well, look, I don't want to give evidence, sometimes you can't force the person to give the evidence. And if they don't give the evidence, then the case falls through. But that should be the court to be doing that, not the police, because then the court can, if there's a settlement, the court can put conditions when monies have to be paid, what have to be done, and so on. That is not the business of the police.
I have the things against the law. Even if the court, I don't think the courts get involved in that unless it's on the civil side. But I think a settlement out of court in a criminal case is against the law. But that's just my view.
Just to clarify, Rickford, because the court do get involved, and I think legally so, because let's say someone assaults you.
Right.
A man come and a man slap Rickford Burke. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but some
his hand is going to lose. He's going to lose that hand.
The matter goes before the court. And then Rickford Burke tells the magistrate, look, I don't wish to give any evidence in this matter, I think. So then there's nothing really. Pardon me?
The case is dismissed. There's no evidence.
The case is dismissed, right. So there are cases like that. There are cases I know from training to where people can go to court. Some people are compelled. They are compellable to give the evidence. So even if they say that they don't want to give the evidence, depending on the nature of the case, the court can compel to give the evidence. They are competent to give it, and the court can compel them to give the evidence in some cases.
Right, and we have the same thing here in New York. As a matter of fact, the court doesn't even compel them. The prosecution continues the case, and the police officers whom the victims would have given statements to become the primary witnesses in those cases, and they present those evidence, and you could be convicted based on that. Domestic violence cases are one area that the law allows for this to proceed. So I just find it amazing in Guyana. But I know it's late. It's 12 o'clock in Guyana. Thank you for staying up.
Yes, it is.
I'm pretty sure it's pretty past your bedtime.
Yeah, it is long past. As a matter of fact, I came on late because I fell in a little doze. So, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks a lot. This has been very insightful. I'm sure the audience has learned a lot about law enforcement, and we can expect some more programs on this. I want to focus on the Guyana Police Force some more, so that we could shine some light on the incompetence, the lack of integrity, and I would say the utter corruption that we're seeing among the leadership of the force. Thanks a lot. Have a very good night. Come again.
Thank you, Rickford. My pleasure.
All right. And to our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. On Sunday coming, we'll have another edition of Conversations with Rickford Burke. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and have a very good night, everybody. Stay safe.